Welcome, and in this video I want to talk about stress and at the extreme trauma, how these are the underlying causes of so many of the modern diseases that are permeating our Western society. When subjected to ongoing stress, the body and the brain learn and then default to a flawed reaction to life events, becoming unable to maintain normal healthy behaviour and immune functions. The psyche splits into a traumatised self and a survivor self. We dissociate internally from the traumatised self in our bodies to avoid feeling their pain. We dissociate externally from our communities and our planet to avoid feeling their suffering. We have a lack of purpose or meaning in life. While all the sections of the brain are important, the limbic brain and the cortex are two critical areas. Emotional feelings are generated when our bodies experience pain or pleasure, and it's the amygdala deep in the limbic brain which is responsible for intense survival emotions. This emotional centre has direct and extremely fast connections with the cortex, the sensory organs, the visceral organs, and the endocrine system. Towards the front of the cortex is the forebrain, and at the very front we have the thin sliver of brain tissue called the pre-frontal cortex. It's the most recent, the most highly evolved, and the most distinctly human of all the regions of the brain. Perhaps most significantly, it's the seat of self-conscious mental processing so that we can observe our own behaviours and emotions. Because of its strong connections with the limbic brain and the endocrine system, the prefrontal cortex is able to modify our responses to external events. In other words, it's able to exert control over the other parts of the brain and hence the whole body. The brain talks to the major organs throughout the body via the nervous system, in conjunction with the endocrine system, through what is called the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, known as the HPA axis. Electrical impulses in the brain and the nervous system cause hormones to be released in the endocrine system, which then cause chemical reactions throughout the body. A distinction of great relevance to health or disease is the division of the autonomic nervous system into the sympathetic and the parasympathetic branches. When the body is under stress and agitated, the sympathetic nervous system interacts with the hormones released by the endocrine system, leading to what is known as the fight or flight response. In this stress state, the blood vessels travelling to the heart, the large muscle groups, the lungs and the brain dilate. The heart and respiratory rates increase, the muscles tense, the pupils dilate so that more light can get in. Glucose is released into the bloodstream, giving a boost of energy. At the same time, the blood flow to the gastrointestinal tract, the hands and the feet is constricted. The immune system is suppressed in order to conserve energy reserves. The reproduction system gets switched off. Blood flow is redirected to the hindbrain, enhancing its life-sustaining reflexes to ensure short-term survival, while blood flow to the forebrain is constricted, reducing our ability to engage in conscious action, reasoning and logic. There's diminished ability to think clearly. If the danger then subsides or is resolved by fight or flight, the endocrine system stops triggering the stress responses. The sympathetic nervous system shuts off again. The ventral vagal branch of the parasympathetic system takes over. Our cortisol and adrenaline levels naturally drop. Our heart rate and our breathing decrease. Our blood pressure drops and the immune, digestive and reproductive systems switch back on. But if the fear-inducing situation is not resolved but escalates, the next stage is defined as true trauma, which arises when a situation is overwhelming. The person feels helpless and hopeless. They fear they won't survive. Fight or flight are impossible or have failed. And at this point, the body switches into the dorsal vagal branch of the parasympathetic system, the state of conservation and withdrawal. The person strives to be unseen. The metabolism shuts down. The heart rate, blood pressure and respiration decrease. The muscles collapse. The person loses all energy to have an impact on their life. They enter a state of helplessness. The body freezes. The HPA axis floods the system with pain-numbing opiates, and this is known as the state of tonic immobility. In this hypometabolic metabolic state, the person may feel shame, disgust, hopeless despair, and then profound detachment or dissociation in which they watch events as if they were out of their own body. The right anterior insula is severely inhibited, so the person is unable to feel their body or their emotions. Dissociatively detached people are remote from their sense of identity and themselves. They don't know who they are. Unfortunately, many people today are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and dissociation from their bodies and their selves. Millions more are suffering from chronically elevated levels of stress and disease, leaving themselves open to infections and viruses as their immune system is operating at a reduced level. As Alan Shore writes, there is a growing consensus that human disease states fundamentally involve a dysregulation of an organism's psychobiological stress coping systems. When we participate in any activity, neurons in the cortex learn and remember information through the creation of neural networks, which get stronger when they're used and wither when they're left unattended. In neurology, the pathways that we use most often are called attractors. The problem with attractors is that they lead to the neural network registering new sensory information as if it conformed to past experience. As renowned clinical professors of psychiatry, Thomas Lewin, Richard Lannon and Fari Amini conclude, the neural past interferes with the present. Experience methodically rewires the brain, and the nature of what it has seen dictates what it can see. So, for example, if an event has caused stress in the past, we tend to have a stressful reaction to the same event in the present, even when the circumstances are completely different. If our neural attractors are strong enough, we may even be inclined to manipulate completely novel events to correspond to our old beliefs. We hear what we've heard 1,000,000 times before. Even although the information this time is different, we see what we've unconsciously decided that we will see, even if that's not really what's there. We react as we have reacted before to a particular stimulus, even when the wider circumstances are different. The neural network of attractors and what may appear from the outside to be inappropriate reactions to minor stresses or setbacks in life are most pronounced in children who have been systemically abused and adults suffering from PTSD. Alan Shore has collated much of the evidence that demonstrates how psychologically stressed children become dissociating adults, and this derives from the neural programming in their right brain that results from repeated trauma. When they grow, these children can switch into dissociated states very quickly in response to external events that would cause only a minor elevation of the HPA axis in people whose limbic attractors were less focused on the extreme response of tonic immobility. This conditioning leads to a cascading reaction to life events in which people respond in what appears to others to be an inappropriate way. They see life-threatening trauma when others see a minor threat. They fall into hopeless despair when others see a small setback. This may all sound terribly gloomy, but the third conclusion from recent neuroscience is that we all have the potential for change. Thanks to the self-conscious mental abilities of the pre-frontal cortex, we can learn to observe our own behaviours and emotions and modify the response of the limbic brain and the endocrine system to external events. We can reprogram our beliefs and our limbic attractors so that the future may be different from the past. And some of these techniques will be the focus of my next video.